Hello and welcome to Shanghai for the second leg of the IAAF Diamond League. 20 million people live in China's most important business and finance centre on the mainland, and elsewhere in the country it has undergone a stunning transformation over the last 15 years or so. But still, many of the characteristics that made it one of the world's most influential and intriguing cities for 100 years or so still remain. And an intriguing evening we hope in store here in the Shanghai Stadium. Just about a half-hour taxi ride from the main city centre. Holds 65,000 when it's full, but there's probably about 20,000 in here tonight to see. Amongst other highlights, of course, their beloved Liu Zhang in the 110-metre hurdles, and of course Usain Bolt on show for the first time in the Diamond League this evening over 200 metres. The temperature is pretty cool for this time of the year in Shanghai, 19 degrees centigrade, and yesterday's rain thankfully has cleared away. Slight breeze down on the track as well, but we hope conditions pretty good for some particularly fast times and some good performances in the field as well. Well, the Diamond League, if it's all new to you, right throughout the season, 14 meets, 7 meets each discipline being held in, and the athletes competing for points. 4 points for a win, 2 for second and 1 for third, and those who have the most points at the end of the season in their particular event win the diamond race, get a diamond ring worth $80,000 as well as prize money at each of the 14 meets. Well, that's the introductions out of the way, and I'm pleased to say, sitting alongside me here in Shanghai as we see the national flag being raised and national anthem being played is Tim Hutchins. Evening, Tim.
Evening, Steve. Thanks very much. Yes, rather a grand gesture there from one of the gentlemen in charge of the flag raising ceremony. This, of course, very much the norm over here, while the athletes for the first track event are standing patiently beside their blocks, half stripped down and ready to compete. It will be the women's 400-metre hurdles due off in a couple of minutes' time. This is, of course, quite a rarity, I suppose, on the European circuit, the national anthem playing out for what is really a commercial meeting, not a major championships. And this wasn't scheduled, I'm sure, but nonetheless, the athletes standing to attention. As you would expect, if it was a medal ceremony, we wouldn't be talking now. We'd be watching the flag and admiring a replay of the performance, probably. But the performances lie ahead, as Steve said. Very, very good meeting indeed. Fittingly, we have the Olympic and World Champion going in this first track event, due off in a few minutes' time. 1 or 2 field events have already taken place and are completed. We'll be bringing you the best of that action, of course, over the coming 2 hours. And several field events just getting underway in what is a glorious facility. It's a shame there isn't a bigger crowd in here. Maybe the more will come in as Liu Zhang's performance time grows closer. It's 9:40 his race time. We are 7 hours ahead here of UK, 6 hours ahead of Central European time. But you're right, Steve, probably 10-15,000 in here at the moment, and predictions were it would be 2 or 3 times that. Well, there's the lineup for this first track event. The women's 400-metre hurdles. And Elaine Walker for Jamaica in lane 4 is the Olympic and world champion, but the world #1 this year, and significantly the silver medalist last year in Berlin at those Worlds, is Lashinda Dimas in lane 6. So good little match-up this, but only 3 of the 9 athletes, and this is a 9-lane track, only 3 of the 9 athletes in this one have raced over 400-metre hurdles this year. It is very early days, of course. The 23rd of May, it's a sharp end of the European and non-North American season, I suppose you could say, because in the Americas, of course, the collegiate circuit gets underway back in April. So in lane 1, Satomi Kubokura, national record holder for Japan, the 28-year-old. 4th in Osaka recently, 56.29 her season's best. That's less than a second outside her lifetime best. Tough lane draw though. Pretty good athlete, semi-finalist in Beijing 2 years ago. He's already had 3 or 4 races this season. We're back with her again, Satomi Kobukura then. In lane 1, nervous moments this for the Japanese, because she's up against a very strong field indeed. She'll be chasing from the word go and possibly through to the end of this one. Rabchenyuk for Ukraine, 4th in the Olympic Games, the Ukrainian. She goes in 2. European Championship finalist 4 years ago in Gothenburg. In lane 3, Kaliza Spencer, 4th in the World Championships last year. A former World Junior champion, has very good flat speeds as the Jamaican, 50.5 for 400 on the flat. That was a couple of years ago. And lane 3, well, not a bad draw. In lane 4, outsider it is, the Olympic champion, Melaine Walker of Jamaica. 27 years old now, in her prime. Coached by Stephen Francis, same man who coaches Asafa Powell. And Walker, of course, adding world gold last year to that Olympic title. Sheena Toster goes in 5 outside her, the Olympic silver medalist, another good American here, coached by Bobby Kersey. Very useful over the sprint hurdles too, 12.75 Toster. And she's sandwiched between the two big names really. Here is the world number 1 this year, Lashinda Demas in lane 6 for the USA, a former world junior champion. She's a silver medalist twice in the World Championships, including last year in Berlin. Has already got a lot of races under her belt, Demas. Anna Yesian of Poland, the national record holder for the Poles, bronze medalist at the World Championships in Japan 3 years ago, back in Osaka in 2007. Very experienced Yesian. Natala Antyuk goes in lane 8 for Russia. Bronze medalist in the Olympics over 400 metres flat, Antyuk. She's a sub-50-second 400-metre runner, but moved to 400-metre hurdles with some good effect. A 54.1 athlete last year. And then Dominique Darden completes the line-up in lane 9 for the USA, the world number 6 this year. Already quite a few races under her belt, with recently a win in Ponche in Puerto Rico to her name. Well, Walker in 4, Demas in 6. That's where the racing is expected to take place between them. In lane 5 is Sheena Toster, the Olympic silver medalist. Fastest time in the world this year is 54.09 by Lashinda Demas in lane 6. So Walker in 4, Toster 5, Demas in 6. Those the favourite lanes. Away without any trouble. Let's see who's first to rise here. Looks like in lane 6, gone off very fast indeed, as Demas has already picked up Yesian, the pole outsider, and moving up down the back straight there to left of picture, catching Antyuk as well. She's blasted away through the first half of this race as Lashinda Demas. She is, of course, running blind and probably a little bit nervous about the Olympic champion, Melaine Walker, inside her in lane 4. Round the crown of the bend, and Demas leading. Walker beginning to gain a little ground on her now as the stagger unwinds their centre of picture. But Walker's got a lot of work to do as they come into the straight. Just over 100 to run. There are big bends on this track, relatively short straights, but Demas into the straight now, and she's still 5 metres to the good. Walker there in lane 4 takes that one badly. Coming through strongly in lane 2 is Rabchenyuk, but this is a dominant run from Demas. She's way out in front. 10, 11, 12 metres to the good at the line. 53.34. In second place there is Antyuk, and I think just inside her Yesian in third place. That's the fastest time in the world this year by well over half a second from Lashinda Demas. No wonder she's smiling. That was a very strong run indeed. She's well into her racing season, that's the only thing. Remember, for a lot of these athletes, Demas included, as an American, there was no major championship this year, no Europeans, no Commonwealth Games. They can just race and enjoy themselves and let the performances come, let them flow. My word, did she flow well there. Unofficial winning time, 53.34, Steve.
Pretty quick, Tim. This is the Lashinda Demas remember that we saw through most of last season. Of course, what happened in the World Championships, she couldn't hold this form, and Melaine Walker came back at her and ran brilliantly the World Championship final. Now Walker, in trying to chase Demas today, absolutely collapsed in the last 50 metres or so, lost second place, ended up finishing about 5th or 6th. But Demas looking in superb form very early this year, hits it hard through that first 200 and gives them no chance at coming back. She was tired herself over those last couple of flights, but rewarded with a world-leading time, and I think we're going to see her go pretty quick this year. Wouldn't be surprised if we see something special from her later on in the season.
A winning time, incidentally, almost a second and a half ahead of Antyuk. It's a meeting record. 53.34 is confirmed from the Russian Antyuk, outside 54.8. Well, the women's shot put competition was earlier on tonight, and Li Zhaogong throwing well, the Chinese, just 21 years old, but in round 6, going out to 19 metres 60 for third place. It was the season's best after producing just that in round 5 with a 19:49. So finished strongly. Valerie Villi, though, well, that cloak of invincibility is severely damaged at the World Indoors in Doha back in March, and then again here tonight in New Zealand in round 3, producing 19:72, but that was only good enough for second place for Villi. And this is the lady who's taken the world lead, Nadezhda Ostapchuk of Belarus. Putting together, well, a solid series, 20 metres 70 coming in the second round. It's the longest throw in the world this year and a new meeting record for the Belarusian. She didn't break 20 metres throughout 2009, but this year she really has got the dominance over Villi. Confirmation of the win there for the Belarusian. 20 metres 70 by almost a metre. Defeats the one-time invincible New Zealander Valerie Villi, the Olympic and world champion, indoors and out of the worlds.
Women's triple jump also held a little earlier on, and the two names at the bottom there were the ones everybody was watching for, who'd come out on top between Olga Ripakova and Jagela Savigne, the two-time world champion from Cuba, but who was beaten by the Kazakhstan athlete at the World Indoor Championships. Well, the battle for third was eventually won by Anna Piatik. She jumped out to just close to 14 metres after a pretty consistent series. This was in the 5th round. A Russian who's always been close to the medals. Has jumped pretty well indoors this year. But you can see they're fairly consistent series, but I'm sure she'll be expecting a little better than that. So it was left to the two bigger names to find out for the maximum points here. Savigne started very well. This was her best effort, came in the 2nd round. A world champion had a superb year last year, was unbeaten in all 12 competitions, but it's been a little bit of a different story so far this year. Despite that 14.61, which at that point she may have thought could possibly be good enough to win it, the world lead was sitting at 14.76 before today's event, so she might have thought, well, that might be an indication of something better to come in the competition, but it wasn't to be so. It was Ripakova who, just a few minutes after that in the 2nd round, produced the winning jump. Missed out on a medal at the Olympics, but jumped superbly well at the World Indoors in Doha, and here she went out to a world lead of 14.89. And the wind, as mentioned earlier on, was there's a bit of a breeze fluttering around, and it's been predominantly in their face down that back straight in the triple jump, but on this occasion she just had a very slight following wind. So 14.89, top of the world list this year for Ripakova, 4 points for her. Savigne taking 2nd place and Piatik, the Russian, in 3rd.
Confirmation then of that very, very comfortable win for Lashinda Dimas, the world's fastest time this year, 53.34, ahead of Anchuk and Yesian, the Olympic champion Walker, down in 5th. And confirmation of those points too for Dimas, Anchuk and Yesian, 4-2-1 respectively in the diamond race standings. That, of course, the first event of 7 for this summer for those athletes.
Well, that's going to be interesting to watch later on this season. Walker really trying to give chase around that top bend and paid for it somewhat, didn't she, in the home straight? Well, first look at 100 metres this season for women. There's a lineup for you, and the two names you'll be watching out for right in the middle there, lanes 4 and 5. 9 lanes here. Lane 1's going to be left empty in this 100 metres. It'll be Shelly-Ann Fraser, the Olympic champion, and indeed world champion, against Carmelita Jeter, the world number 1. This is Shaloni Calvert of Jamaica. She's 21 years of age. Ran in Daegu the other night. 11.36, nothing too special. And the veteran of women's sprinting, Chandra Stirrup of the Bahamas, a former world indoor champion at the age of 38 now. So here she is, the Olympic champion, Shelly-Ann Fraser. World champion last year when many thought she might not be able to make the great double, but she did it in fine style. This is the first time she's racing Carmelita Jeter. Remember how well Jeter finished last year was unbeaten after Berlin. Then he said, well, that doesn't matter, you didn't run well enough in Berlin. She just took the bronze medal there, but she started out in 2010 with the same sort of form, already under 11 seconds this year. Bianca Knight of the USA, a former world youth champion, won the 200 meters in Daegu. Melissa Barber next to her, former world indoor champion. And of course, one of the features of the Diamond League is not only to have the big names, but as we go through each of the cities around the world, we'll see, of course, some of the local athletes given their chance to compete at this level. Tao Yuya and Jiang Lan from China in lanes 8 and 9 on the outside. Well, they might just find this a little bit of a struggle. Certainly the way that Carmelita Jeter started this year. She changed coaches, now working with John Smith, and she puts that huge improvement last year where she ran 10.64. Shelley-Ann Fraser ran 10.73. That's not hanging around either, is it? But she managed to do it on the big day in Berlin. But Jeter is certainly considered to be the world #1 at the moment. Will she confirm that here? The women's 100 meters. Calvert in lane 2 at the top. Stirrup, then Fraser, then Jeter, Knight, Barber, Tao and Jiang. Away first time, remember, no false start. Shelley-Ann Fraser got a cracking start, but here comes Carmelita Jeter alongside, and also going well is Chandra Stirrup. Carmelita Jeter's having to work for this one. Jeter's going to take it from Shelley-Ann Fraser and storms away in the end. 11.08. She looked at the clock. I think she maybe thought that might be a bit quicker than that. She had to work hard. It wasn't the best start from Carmelita Jeter. I was saying how she's been working with John Smith, a lot of time in the gym these days, 4 days a week. She said, I'm much stronger than I used to be. My body can hold up to the training I'm having to do. And she has been producing quick times and the victories. And in the end, she put a little bit of daylight between herself and Shelley-Ann Fraser, the Olympic champion, over the last 15 meters or so. And I think Fraser might not be too happy with that season opener.
I don't suppose she is, Steve. The winning time confirms 11.09 into a very, very slight headwind, but the times behind her, when you see the winning margin, very disappointing indeed. Fraser second, 11.29. Stirrup, at the age of 38, third in 11.38. But look at the power there. She's really working hard, head bobbing. I don't think the form was great there, frankly, from Stirrup through that second half. She's looking pretty stiff, but she does win by, what, 3 meters and going away. Fraser far, far more relaxed there, but well beaten. Bit of a strange one. I suppose, when you think about it, maybe Fraser is Jamaican going for the Commonwealths in October, so expecting her season to come over this next 8 or 10 weeks rather than in a great rush now with no particular target for the season. It's strange, isn't it? Can you imagine not having a target for the season?
That was a strange race, that. Shelley-Ann Fraser only just beating Chandra Stirrup, and well, you wouldn't be surprised if you said Chandra Stirrup ran 11.38, but to come third with that, well, I'm sure we'll get better. Carmelita Jeter, as I said, there's only 2 women who've run under 11 seconds this year, including Jeter. All right, let's look back at the men's discus. Again, a competition which is already finished, but again, a very, very good quality here. And things changed around pretty dramatically in the last couple of rounds. Malachowski, the Olympic silver medalist, was just out of the top 3 places, and then late on he produced a pretty big throw here. Now things were chopping and changing all the time, and he thought this might give him a chance of winning at that time. 68.66. Huge throw from Malachowski, but then this is what happened. Robert Harting threw out 68.69. That's just 3 centimeters further. Now Harting, at that point, I pretty much thought he'd had it sewn up. Haddadi of Iran was sitting in a comfortable place, and then all of a sudden, right at the very end, he was in 5th place. Zoltán Kovács of Hungary threw the cat amongst the pigeons somewhat. 31 years of age, Olympic silver medalist back in Athens 6 years ago. And he found a little bit of form at just the right time. I don't think anybody was expecting him, probably least of all Kavago. And there's the reaction from him as it sailed out almost to the 70-meter mark. Huge, huge throw. 69 meters and 69 centimeters. That was good enough to win it right at the very end. So season's best for all three of them. Cantor still heads up the world list. And the 71.45 a couple of months ago. So a pretty good start there for Kavago. I wonder if that'll be the only one he wins this year. We shall see.
There's the lineup for the men's javelin. That event due to get underway, well, right now. And Andreas Thorkildsen, the Norwegian, who is of course the double Olympic champion from 2004 and 2008, the world champion as well, and the European champion to boot. This incidentally is not a Diamond League event, it is an exhibition event. And that's Ulrik Damons of South Africa, just opening proceedings there. He's just 19 years old, big lad, isn't he, for 19, goodness me, and he's already had a very, very busy season down there in South Africa. The Southern Hemisphere season, of course, only really coming to a climax in middle of March, and it's difficult for athletes from Australia and South Africa and one or two other territories to meld the two, the Southern Hemisphere season and this Northern season, which of course we're all so much more familiar with, as are the North Americans and the Caribbeans. That open up 71.83 for the young South African Damons.
This is Zhao. Well, again, early stages, and we're looking forward to seeing Thorkildsen, as I'm sure many in the crowd are. He's one of the Diamond League ambassadors. His rather good-looking frame, so many women tell me, is adorning lots of the posters around town. As Tim said, this event here not counting in the Diamond League, just for demonstration purposes. Just looking down, Tim, there's a huge contingent, talking about people adorning the posters of green and yellow and Usain arms, as it were. And if you hear a bit of atmosphere being created, it's a huge Jamaican contingent, I guess, here in Shanghai. We're looking forward to seeing Usain Bolt later.
The men's 400 metres, there's the lineup. Michael Bingham from Great Britain is one of 3 World Championship finalists from Berlin last year. All eyes, though, on who really has dominated the last decade or so, Jeremy Warner, but just under the tutelage of Clyde Hart, trying to regain it after losing it for this last couple of seasons. There is the full lineup. Leslie Joan of France in lane 5. Good draws those for Bingham and Joan in 4 and 5. But the world number 2, Ben Offreins, is a very, very exciting new talent from Australia. He goes in lane 7. 24 years old, so it's not like he's a youngster. And he has a bronze medal from those World Championships last year in the long relay. But 44.86 has to be respected. Zhao Shenglu of China goes in lane 1. Chinese champion for the last 3 years. He was also the Asian champion last season. In 2, there's a familiar figure, the Swede Johan Visman, silver medalist in the World Indoors a couple of years ago, and a silver medalist too over 200 metres at the last Europeans in 2006. Jeremy Warner then in lane 3 holds the meeting record from 2007 when he ran 44.02, but that time, that sort of time in the moment, appears to be beyond him. He's still only 26, Warner, the Olympic champion of 2004, unbeaten in 2005 and 2007 in those World Championships, but that veil of invincibility is dropping. Michael Bingham of Great Britain, 7th in those World Championships, the world number 8 this season in 45.1. He goes in 4. Then Leslie Joan, French national record holder. He's a former long jumper, is Joan. European junior champion back in 1999 in the long jump. But very, very strong, and it's a good draw for him. He's inside this man, David Neville, in lane 6. The Olympic bronze medalist, Neville. He beat Jeremy Warner in Ponce in Puerto Rico on the 8th of May, just what, some 10 days or so ago. A couple of weeks ago. In lane 7, Ben Offreins, that is the young Australian. Has had a very, very good Australian season. And, well, how will he cope here? Not a great draw for him, really, with all those big guns inside him. Gary Kikaya, Semi-finalist of the last 2 Olympic Games, a semi-finalist of the last 3 World Championships prior to Berlin. He's a former rugby player, actually, Lёгкая. Powerfully built lad. He's in lane 8 and will be chasing this man, the Bahamian Andre Williams. Only 46-1 in that Puerto Rican meeting a couple of weeks back. But on his day, pretty useful. Has run 44.9 as Williams, although that was 5 years ago. But what about Jeremy Warner? He changed coaches to a guy called Michael Ford in 2008, having had a fantastic period of 4 or 5 years under Clyde Hart. Rather inexplicable when you look at it from an athletic perspective, although apparently there was finance at the bottom of it. He's back to Hart now. Let's see if Jeremy Warner is back to his best or anything like it. Zhao Shenglu of China in 1, Visman in 2, Warner goes in 3, Bingham for Britain in 4, Joan of France in 5, David Neville goes in 6, remember, the Olympic bronze medalist, then Offerines, the young Australian, in 7, Lёgкая in 8 for the Ivory Coast, and Williams, the Bahamas, in lane 9. Well, that was Bingham raising an arm there, unhappy about something. It may well be that there's a lot of noise in the arena. The crowd of Bolt fans, it looks rather engineered, I have to say, in a massive yellow and green. Pretty close to the start of the 400 metres, just to the right of your picture. As you look down there, there's probably a couple of hundred of them with clackers, and maybe they're making more noise than they should be, Steve.
Well, they're taking the opportunity, well, they are making some noise to allow one of the high jumpers to take an attempt while the athletes walk back. At least they're creating a little bit of noise. Tim, I saw a lot of them downstairs. They've got their drums and whistles and everything, so I suggest when Usain Bolt does come out, and incidentally he's in the next race, and it will get rather louder than it has been. But yeah, it's important that they stay quiet for the start of this. Warner looks really nervous to me.
Well, that's good. I think you need nerves. If you become too apathetic and used to winning, it's probably not a good thing. This is a very important rematch, by the way, between Warner in lane 3 and Neville in lane 6. Back on the 8th of May, that Puerto Rican meeting, there was just 3 100s between them, with Neville in lane 6 actually beating Jeremy Warner. So they called into their blocks then for the second time. That lineup once again from the inside. Zhao Shenglu of China in 1, Visman of Sweden in 2, then Warner, former Olympic champion, in 3, Bingham of Britain in 4, Joan of France in 5, then David Neville goes in lane 6. Offerines, the Australian, is in 7. Watch him, the world number 2 this year. Lёgкая of the Ivory Coast in 8, and Williams in lane 9. Well, away this time. Lёgкaya very slow up out of his blocks there. And quickest away in lane 4 is Michael Bingham. No doubt about it. Bingham's already up on Joan of France in the white strip, centre of picture. Down the back straight, also going strongly, is Offerines. The young Australian's obviously sharp after his domestic season. Left of picture there. Offerines has passed the 2 men outside him. Also going strongly by the looks of things is Bingham, and outside him Joan, now better into his running, but it's very even around the crown of that bend as the stagger unwinds. Offerines might have gone off a little too quickly because he's got a host of men inside him just easing past. And what a good run this is from Warner. He's judged this one well. Remember, he's beaten by Neville in lane 6. Neville coming through strongly, but I think he's left it too late. It's going to be a win for Warner, and a comfortable win at that, a couple of metres to the better from Neville. And Bingham, I think, hanging on for 3rd place there. Strong run from the Briton, and the time again, well, on the slow side, 45.41 showing on the clock side, on the trackside clock. And I can only imagine, Steve, that as this morning when you and I were strolling around the track, there's maybe a bit of a swirling breeze in the arena here, and it's playing against the athletes as they complete each lap of the track. So for Warner there, the time, nothing to write home about. The win, important, I suppose, and yeah, he gets some revenge over Neville.
Yes, again, Timmy. It's hard to work out really what to make of this, because Warner, I think all that happened there was Warner didn't get sucked into the races that were happening ahead of him. Bingham went off really hard. Offerines tried to really kick from 200. He ran a very hard bend, and then by the time he came to the home straight, was really struggling. Warner stayed pretty smooth all the way through. I think this was a bit of rustiness early season from 3 or 4 of them, although a couple of them have had 2 or 3 races, and they should really be a bit better than this at this stage, so maybe there is a bit of breeze out there. But Warner just ran a good, steady, even race, didn't panic. He looked well down at 200 metres, but came through nicely, ran control down the home straight. And to be fair, they weren't really getting anywhere near him, were they? Comfortable win, really, in the end. Neville somewhat distant, a good 3/10 or so behind. Michael Bingham, well, maybe good things to expect from him, from the British athlete. Our men's pole vault, again an event in its very early stages, and looking forward to seeing another Australian. We're talking about the young Overeins in that 400 metres. That rather more famous man, Steve Hooker, will be the favourite in the pole vault. A bar just at 5:40 at the minute. Quite a few failures already, actually. But I'm good. Stephen Lewis has gone clear. Came in at 5:20. And also Hendrik Gruber of Germany and Mazurik of Ukraine. Yet to see Stephen Hooker, the man who's dominated pole vault over the last 2-3 years.
Tim Mack then, first attempt coming up at 5:40, having had a little hiccup there at 5:20. Mack, of course, former Olympic champion. He took gold in Athens back in 2004, did the American. He and Steve Hooker and Steve Lewis as well were in the gym this morning in the hotel when I attempted to jog a very sweaty 20 minutes on the treadmill.
I'm impressed.
I was impressed with the fact I was in a room with 2 Olympic champions. I was just hanging around for the atmosphere myself.
Could they tell that you used to do a bit of running yourself, or were they just ignoring?
It was well hidden, I can tell you. I felt awful. Might be something to do with coming to China for a weekend. But this is Mack at 5:40. Only 3 men clear so far, and as Steve said, a lot of people are having problems. 5 men have failed so far at this height. Oof. Well, for Mack, this is not a particularly good night so far anyway. Second failure there for the American. Hooker incidentally hasn't come in yet. The next height will be 5:50, then 60, 70, 80, and then it'll go up in 5 centimetre increments. Mack, of course, a member of that 6 metre club, which I think is 13 strong now.
Well, this is recorded, obviously. I mentioned that Steve Lewis had gone clear at 5:20 and 5:40. He's now training with Steve Hooker. He's left his coach, Steve Rippon, in Loughborough, and already starting to see some benefits. Had a good indoor season, and by all accounts, he's raring to go for the outdoor season. Thinks he's ready to go higher, and that's a pretty good clearance, isn't it, over 5:40?
Very sound clearance indeed. Yeah, I think it's just being based in Perth for the last few months and working out with Steve Hooker, who is the consummate performer, has been wonderfully beneficial to Steve Lewis. This could be an exciting season for the Briton.
Men's high jump has moved on to 2:20. This is Barber, Olympic bronze medalist when he was just 19 back in Athens. Has yet to sort of maintain that sort of championship form since then, really. Comfortably clear there. World lead this year in the high jump, Dusty Jonas of the USA, 2-3 weeks ago, 2:33, but not much else going on, and I think there's only 2 men over 2:30 so far this year, so high jump yet really to get moving, but it is early, very, very early in the season.
Well, confirmation then of that comfortable win for Jeremy Warner, albeit in a slowish time. 45.41 for the American from David Neville, with Great Britain's Michael Bingham a good third. And there's the points. Warner clocking up his first Diamond League points of the season, with 4 to him, 2 to Neville, and 1 for Bingham.
Well, the crowd getting ready to see the biggest name in world athletics, one of the biggest names, of course, in world sport. Usain Bolt goes in lane 6, and it all really happened, or started, didn't it, in Beijing almost 2 years ago now. Those 3 gold medals, the 3 world records, and then followed it up with another 3 at the World Championships last year, and another 2 world records. And what an incredible 2 years it's been. Pretty strong field. Well, how can you say it's a strong field for Bolt? It's all relative, isn't it? Zhang Pimang of China, Asian champion over 100 meters last year. He's only run 21.7 you need to be a bit quicker than this to be in the same race as Bolt. Takehira from Japan took a relay medal in Beijing. Japanese team surprise bronze medalist there. Ryan Bailey in lane 3. 20.4, new personal best set this season. Marvin Anderson. He ran in Daegu the other night, finished in second place there. Not the Jamaican though that they've come to see. Chirandi Martina. Thought he'd won the silver medal in Beijing and then was disqualified for running out of his lane a long way behind you know who. The crowd roar, and this is the man the whole world wants to see running. The expectation is huge on his shoulders these days. He's not only carrying, some say, the fortunes of the sport, but the level of expectation that I don't think any athlete has had to deal with in their career. They expect not only a win, that's not good enough. They're looking for world records and fast times at the very least. Angelo Taylor, well, he knows what it's like to be Olympic champion on 2 occasions, of course, over 400-meter hurdles. Li Mingshan from China actually won the Olympic trial for Beijing, but didn't get the qualifying time, so unfortunately for him wasn't able to compete in front of his home crowd. And Ronald Poignon, don't see him over 200 metres too often, the Frenchman, 27 years of age now. And let's face it, they're all playing a little bit second fiddle to the star of the show. How fast will Usain Bolt want to go today? He's already run 19.56 this year, and if he were any other athlete, everybody would think that was pretty remarkable, but that's what, 4.5 tenths slower than, of course, he ran last year at the World Championships to break the world record, 19.19 in Berlin. His first race in the Diamond League this year. What's he got in store for us tonight? They get away first time. Bolt gets a pretty good start. He didn't get such a good one the other night, but this is a scintillating bend again from Usain Bolt. Is he going to hit top gear? It's a big wide bend here in Shanghai. Bolt's got a 2-3 meter lead. This is where he normally pulls away. He's looking a little bit more reserved tonight, but oh, there he goes. Usain Bolt, some clear air between him and the rest of the field. Oh my word. 19.76 is on the clock, and it looked to me as though he wasn't trying all that hard. Into a headwind of 0.8, which is actually the same headwind in his previous race, which was in Kingston when he ran 19.56. He just makes it look so easy. A meeting record for Shanghai. That'll be one of the lesser records that Usain Bolt breaks in his career. But he's done what they all wanted him to do, of course, come here and win. And, well, how do you rank that, Tim? 1976 with him. I mean, it's, by anybody else's standards, it's really difficult to explain this to people, isn't it? By anybody else's standards, you know, most sprinters will never ever get anywhere near that over 200 metres. Never, ever. They can be great runners, will never get anywhere near that, and he makes it look so easy.
He does indeed, and I'll tell you what, I don't think he really started working until he was well into the home straight, about 120 metres under his belt. Here he's just pumping hard round the bend, but he's not really going flat out. Here he gets the straight, the head's beginning to rock a little bit there. Now he begins to turn it on. I think, maybe I say turn it on. The fact is he holds his form so well when others are decelerating, so it creates the illusion of him accelerating. He's not, he's just holding his form well, but he wins there by what, 6 or 8 metres. Second place Taylor, 20.34, a personal best for Angelo Taylor. Not bad for a 400 metre hurdler, his second PB of the year. But from Usain Bolt, that's impressive. 9.86 in Daegu on Wednesday. That was after a poor start. I thought he got a very good start there tonight, actually. He came out of the blocks well. And maybe I'd revise that. I think he was working a little bit harder than my first impression gave.
And watching him cross the line, you know, whenever an athlete looks at the clock, you know that in their mind they think, oh, you know, what have I done there? Well, what he did was 1976, which, as said by his standards, is good. It's nothing special, but it's good. By anyone else's standards, it would be pretty remarkable.
Well, back to this javelin competition, and Petra Friedrich then in the javelin. In the second round now. Opened with 77.20, did the Czech. World number 5 this year. European under 23 silver medalist last year. His coach, though, and this is significant, Jan Zalezny. I wonder if we'll see any similarities in technique or indeed attitude here from this youngster. Only 22 is Friedrich. Already thrown at 84.77 this year. Oh, 77. And that was his opener, 77.20. But he's almost thrown a personal best this season.
Well, talking about Zalezny, he also coaches this man, who has started off the year as number 1, 86.45, a new personal best, just in the meeting, one meeting this year. So he leads the world rankings and will give Torkelson a good competition here tonight, and that's a pretty good effort. Vasily, and the first round looking to get his competition off to a good start. I'm not sure what the conditions are like there, Tim. We keep saying that when we were walking around earlier on, it almost seemed as though it was blowing. It's hard to see why it's blowing across the athletes, because there's a huge stand on that far side. And Bolt had a headwind, didn't he, in the home straight of 0.8. Yeah, we were talking actually with Ricky Sims, weren't we, about that start. You see that foot drag that a lot of people have noticed. That's to help them get the foot plant in a straight line ahead rather than kind of out to the side, so the power all drives forward. Every now and then I think someone's going to trip up doing that, you know, that kind of the toe drag across the ground.
Well, mouth-watering prospect of him racing against Tyson Gay after Gay's 150 and 200 metres straight 200 in Manchester last week. Here's Torkelson, though. First round effort from the Norwegian, the Olympic champion, the world champion, undisputed world number 1, and that's not a bad opener. About 83.5 metres by the looks of things from Torkelson. Lovely fellow too, very relaxed, easygoing. Of course, speaks perfect English. He doesn't like it too much, actually, and that's come down at 83.47 for Torkelson. Best throw so far, though, in the first round. Enjoying himself. Oslo will see, in 10 days or so's time, we'll see his first Diamond League competition in that discipline, of course. How fitting will that be? This, remember, an exhibition event if you've just joined us, the javelin.
You have to question his taste in music. I was reading an article about him and Pit Kamaki, and they're both into pretty heavy metal.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it works.
Well, we've seen Barber already in the high jump. Third attempt at 2:24, and I said he's one of the quite a few high jumpers have been struggling to find the form, and that means there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He becomes the 6th person already to fail, and that includes Andre Manson, who failed at 2:24. And this is not a good start to the high jump year, certainly in the Diamond League. We've only got, well, there should have been 4 or 5, 6 men. He easily should have cleared that height so far, but not the case. As we get back to the track with the steeplechase, Tim.
We do indeed. Yes, 10 athletes on this lineup, and it's a race with a trio of very interesting Kenyans here. Lydia Rotich, not selected for the World Championships in 2009 for their team, but winner of their trials. Gladys Kipkemboi, former World Junior Champion, and Milka Chemos, the surprise bronze medalist last year at those World Championships. There's Elizabeth Mweni, just 18 years old. Mweni, Bobicel of Romania, Rotich of Kenya I've mentioned already, Aguilera, Kowalska of Poland, Frankovic of Poland, Asefa of Ethiopia, Kipkemboi of Kenya, a former World Junior Champion, then Chemos and Madria Hyman of Jamaica will be the pacemaker, aiming to go round in 3:07. There's Gladys Jeracic Kipkemboi, Kenyan champion last year, but only 8th in the World Championships. Big disappointment that. But she's a 9:14 runner, which puts right up there in the top echelon. Milka Chemos, bronze medalist at those World Championships. Self-coached, incidentally, Chemos. For many of these women, it's their first outing. There are very few, I have to say, world-class female steeplechasers. If you think that real quality, the quality end of what steeplechasing is sort of 9:15, 9:20 or quicker, there's very few women who can hit that mark. When you think that the world record now is, what, down below 9 minutes, Samitova Galkina of Russia, remember, winning in Beijing at those Olympic Games in 8:58. And Steve, you know, and if you look at the men's side of steeplechasing, traditionally, if you go back to the 70s and 80s, there was always an element of, well, if you couldn't be world class in the flat, go to the chase, and I think that's creeping into the women's event.
It is, but you know, it's still a relatively new event, and if you look down most people's PBs in this event, they're all done at the World Championships or the Olympic Games. You know, and I think if you remember last year's World Championships, I think there was, I don't know, 8 or 9 out of the top 10 all ran really big personal bests. And I think it's, you know, because they're not getting, they're probably on a lot of races. So it's a good opportunity this year. We've got 7 races. Of course, every event is represented right the way throughout the Diamond League. And with, you know, hopefully the steeplechasers will take the opportunity of, let's hope for some good conditions, good pacemaking, etc., and get some good times. But and of course we've had 1 or 2, you know, great front runners in the steeplechase so far. But I just think it's that idea of you know, still getting the chance to learn and develop in the event. And as the African women, as you said, start to actually switch, you know, the ones who aren't going to make it in the 5 and 10 to start to switch, the really good athletes start to take a chance at this, then I think the times will come tumbling down.
No, it's a good point. The 4th and 5th ranked Kenyans, 4th and 5th ranked Ethiopians will still be better than most of the rest of the world. So I think you're probably right there. I'm interested here to watch Frankiewicz of Poland, formerly Violeta Janowska. She's world class over 1500 metres. There she is on the inside in about 4th place in the green, the tallest figure in the field. She was a European Championship medalist in the steeplechase 4 years ago, but has run 4:03 for 1500 metres back in 2004. Defeated Kelly Holmes a couple of times over 1500 metres prior to the Athens Games, where of course the Briton took gold, but then got thumped in the ribs, elbowed in the ribs during her semi-final in Athens, and wasn't able to give a good account of herself.
Well, I mentioned the high jump earlier on, not the greatest of competitions, it has to be said, but bar has now gone up to 227. Jessie Williams trying to get the crowd interested around the first bend. Nobody's gone clear yet at this height, so he could set himself up very nicely here. Only 3 men left in the competition after 224. No. That's going to be interesting if we start getting nobody clears this height.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Performances look very modest in several disciplines, and I wonder how much the jet lag is grabbing some of these athletes. Come over from the States or indeed from Europe. It's a long old flight, most of them flying in no further away from this competition than in the last 48 hours. And if the way I felt today, jogging 20 minutes was anything to go by, then no wonder these high jumpers are having problems.
I wouldn't blame the jet lag if I were you.
What are you trying to say?
Williams is pacing around down there, looking to see who's up next. Of course, with the steeplechase being on, they're going to have to watch out for their attempts, time it right. So next to go, Thornblad from Sweden. I was chatting to 1 or 2 Swedish journalists today about, of course, they're trying to resurrect the great days, not the great days of Swedish athletics, but of course with the likes of Stefan Holm retiring and Carolina Klüft, of course, not in the heptathlon, and Kaiser Bergqvist, Christian Olsen coming back from injury in the triple jump, and there Thornblad, another failure. So he's had 2 failures now. Williams looks on, and just looking on count back at the moment, Williams, actually no, it'd be Williams is lying in 2nd place. We're going to see shortly Sylvester Bednarek. The Pole is the only other athlete left in this. So Thornblad, you're left with just 1 attempt at 227. There he is, Bednarek, bronze medalist last year. That was a bit of a surprise, just 20 years of age he was in Berlin. It's his first competition of the year, And he's probably surprised to find himself leading after he came in at 2:15. Cleared that first time, no problem. He had one failure at 2:20. Cleared 2:24 first time, but this is his second attempt at 2:27. Oh, that was better. Almost. Well, that was the best attempt we've seen at that height. But nobody clear yet, so Williams will be next to go. I think it's a point though, Tim, and the way the Diamond League is structured. We had Doha last Thursday, Shanghai, and then swing back into Europe for Oslo, and then out to the States. And people forget that athletes have to cope with a lot of travel, time differences, etc. But that's part and parcel of being an international athlete. You have to work it in. Some people like to stay on there. If you're coming from Europe, I know a few people trying to stay on European time with sleep patterns, etc. A few have been here quite a few days and trying to adapt to a local time zone.
Well, pity the pole vaulters. Talking to Steve Hooker and Steve Lewis today, they don't even bother travelling with their poles from Australia to Europe now. They just keep a second set of poles in Europe, so that the travelling's made a lot easier. They were saying, hey, most athletes only have to worry about a pair of shoes, a pair of competition shoes. Well, so steeplechase, sorry Steve, that steeplechase, just to update you, is ploughing along in the background. They're about to go through 2 kilometres. We'll update you, I'm sure we'll come to you for the last couple of laps, but it's pretty quick.
So Jesse Williams, second attempt, 2:27. Now, it looked as though he took off a little prematurely there. Just didn't get the penetration into the bar that was required. Just watch this here. That was a little better than his first attempt, but no, everyone a little ragged in this early stage of the season at high jump. Now here we go, Tim.
Well, 3:02 at 1 kilometre, 6:11 at 2 kilometres, and they're moving very, very smoothly indeed now as they come down in front of us with just 2 laps to go. It's not going to be a 9-minute performance, but it's not going to be a slow one either. We've got Kenyans in 1, 2 and 3. It is that trio I mentioned, Rutic, Kipkemoi and Chemos in 1, 2 and 3. Just beginning to ease away now. It is Chemos, the surprise bronze medalist last year at those World Championships. Running in a typically Kenyan, unbridled manner. It's Kipkemoi up front, excuse me. But isn't she moving well? Lovely smooth rhythm she's got. A shame she hasn't got more competition because she's pushing through these last couple of laps on her own. 10 metres to the good now as she takes the water jump for the penultimate time.
I think, Tim, she was aware Chemos produced a pretty scintillating sprint finish we had in the World Championship final last year, although she didn't actually win the race, and she's pretty quick in the latter stages. But this looks like, as she approaches the bell, that Kipkemoi is stuck with this pace better than the other two, who look a little tired, a little ragged now. That lead is extending.
Well, that time at the bell, 8:04, very impressive from Kipkemoi at the bell. The bronze medalist last year at the World Championships. She ran her first steeplechase ever in April last year and won the bronze medal just 4 months later in Berlin. Into the back straight then. And Kipkemoi has built up a lead now of about 20 metres, 25 metres on her 2 rivals. Takes that barrier well, just over 200 to run. She's churning along tremendously well, and we were talking about how if the athletes who are 3rd, 4th, 5th ranked in Kenya or Ethiopia can't make the teams in the flat events, the 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 as those events come up, then the steeplechase is not a place, not a bad resort for them. And she comes into the straight now, 90 metres to run, just over 9 minutes on the clock. What a performance this is from Kipkemoi, former World Junior Champion, 8th in the World Championships last year. She was Kenyan champion though. And it's going to be the fastest time in the world this year by a massive margin. 9:16 there for Kipkemoi. Only a couple of seconds outside her personal best. Wow, what a run. And at this stage of the season, a first outdoor race of the season, the field torn asunder by that opening kilometre of 3:02. 6:11 at 2k meant what, about a 3:09 for the second kilometre, and then to come home in 9:16 means about a 3:05 for the final kilometre. Good closing form from Kipkemoy there to take that one.
Yeah, she was rewarded, Tim, with some pretty brave front running. Once the pacemaker dropped out, and Andrea Hyman, you see, if you go that fast early on, Hyman was asked to go through in 3:7. She was 5 seconds quicker than that through the first kilometre. And of course, you've got two choices then. You either keep that going or try to keep it going, or you're going to back off. And Kipkemoy decided to keep pushing on and pulled away from her two teammates. And Chemos looked a little tired at the end then. I think they're all surprised how quick they've gone there. But you're right, you'd assume certainly, well, Chemos just got a little bit of a click there, but Kipkemoy was looking round in that last 150 metres, comfortable with her win, but I think if she'd realised, she was almost surprised when she crossed the line. As you said, only a couple of seconds off her personal best. I think she can go much quicker.
Well, she can indeed, and I was going to say that if you go out in 3:02 and you're meant to be running 3:07 for the first kilometre, it's poor pacemaking, but of course the average time was about 3:05 per kilometre, so maybe the Kenyans were ushering Hyman on through that first 2 or 3 laps. She's delighted with that one. Look, I think she probably knows full well that as this season unfolds, so she can go a great deal faster and maybe push on down towards 9 minutes.
Pole vault, still progressing, 5:40, third attempt. Of course, we'll get a look at some of the Chinese athletes competing here. Yang. Oh, just about gets over it. So that'll please the local crowd. Yang Shengyang. Clearance at the third attempt. We were saying earlier on that Steve Hooker is becoming such a world star. Of course, there's not many people get to hold the major titles, the Worlds, the Olympics, Commonwealths, World Indoors. And again, he's one of those faces. He's a great character, Steve Hooker, as well, and his face on all of the Diamond League posters around Shanghai.
Well, Jeremy Scott under some pressure here, the American. Third attempt at 5:40 for Scott. He's a 5:70 vaulter this year. Squeezes over that one. Incidentally, he's 2 metres and 8 centimetres tall, is Scott. That's 6 foot 9.5 tall. He has to be just about the biggest athlete around on the circuit.
He could jump over it, couldn't he?
Made the American team for the World Championships last year, but didn't make the final. But he's mixing with the right sorts. He's coached by former world champion, or world record holder rather, Earl Bell, and his agent is just Jeff Hartwig.
Alexander Gripish. Good clearance from him as well. He's pleased with that, isn't he? It's got every chance of getting a really good pole vault competition here. Yes, Hooker's the favourite, and you wouldn't bet against him in any competition these days, would you? But the pole vault, of course, with its unpredictability, you've got to, if you're going to win the Diamond League, the Diamond Race for your event, of course, win all 7 competitions, you're going to do that. But you see that less and less these days. One athlete being totally dominant, of course, we'd expect that from Bolt, but first time clearance at 5:50 for Gripish, so his competition starting pretty well. It would be interesting to see, won't it, how this first year of the Diamond League pans out.
I think they have always said that this is in effect an experimental year, and that maybe certain aspects of the scoring system, the number of meetings, the way the whole format is laid out, will need tweaking in years to come. Oh, that's a good clearance from Gruber rather. Second time clearance there at 5:50. course, the Germans have this huge tradition in the vault. He's only 23, Gruber, and I have to say, a relatively new name to me, even though he is a World Student Games bronze medalist from last year.
He's the only vaulter I've ever seen take your cap off halfway around. Watch this. You missed it first time. Very good clearance. His teammate, another new name as well, Maltimore. You're seeing him shortly, but watch this here. Gruber, Henrik Gruber. Oh. See, I teed it up nicely, didn't I? And then the slow-mo stopped. Well, anyway, as he goes over the bar and he's cleared it, the hat comes off on the way down. Here he is then, the star of the show, Steve Hooker of Australia. Went to Berlin seemingly without a hope. He was meant to be injured, he hadn't competed. And, ended up scraping his way over 2-3 of the earlier heights in his third attempt. Great competitor, Steve Hooker, but with supreme ability as well. Oh. Well, technique a little ragged there, right off to the side. Oh, he's got to be careful with that. He knows it as well. A bit of a chuckle to himself, maybe, but he's just having a look up. He needs to get his act together if he's going to go high. He's got all of the requirements, huge strength as well. He's, as you were saying, you saw him in the gym today, but he's a big man, Steve Hooker, and needs a lot of strength to lift that. Look how high he was there.
That's a massive vault, Steve. I mean, it was ragged, as you say, but gosh, there's so much more to come. This is his first competition for 6 weeks. He took a few meets in the Australian season, including when he came over to Europe, that World Indoors, of course, in, I say Europe, World Indoors in Doha. Confirmation of the win for Kip Kemoy then, 9:16.82, the fastest time in the world this year. Chewa, 4 seconds down in third place, in second place, and Rotich in third. It was a 1-2-3 for Kenya in the steeplechase. And the points allocated accordingly, 4-2-1 for Kemoy, Chewa and Rotich. A lot more to come from Kip Kemoy. Watch that name.
Well, perhaps one of the most competitive events of the evening now, the women's 800 metres. There'll be a couple of pages of the start list. Pamela Jalimo there in lane 5. The surprise Olympic champion in 2008. Well, certainly at the beginning of that year you wouldn't have known much about her. And Janet Jepkosgei, the world champion from 2007. Two Kenyan athletes who looked as though they were perhaps going to dominate for a period. Of course, Jalimo came along in 2008 and stole Jepkosgei's thunder. And as we go through these lane by lanes, it's going to be really interesting to see how those two lined up against Great Britain's Jenny Meadows, who's over the last 2-3 years has made fantastic progress in this event, becoming a medalist at world level indoors and outdoors, and Kenya Sinclair of Jamaica, who's at the age of 29 is finding some very, very good form at the start of 2010. So on the inside you saw Police of Poland. Li Yong of China will share a lane with Angelika Chijoka from Poland. Familiar name and face to middle distance fans over the last few years. Tatiana Petelyuk, European indoor silver medalist and world indoor silver medalist 2 years ago. And of course Russia with such great strength and depth. This is Sinarova. He ran under 159 indoors this year, but out of the medals at the World Championships. Here she is then, the Olympic champion. Looked absolutely invincible in 2008, ran 154 just over, and then over the last 2 years has looked nothing like that. It's not so far in 2010, and certainly not last year. Jepkosgei rather more consistent. Silver medalist behind her teammate after having won the Worlds the year before that. Her first big outdoor race of the year. Now Jenny Meadows, she's been training in South Africa, had a great indoor season, broke the British record. 158.43. Really exciting summer in store for Jenny Meadows. But this could be the athlete, not the two insider, this could be the one to watch out for. Kenya Sinclair, world leader this year, 158.62. Big win in Kingston back at the beginning of the month, and then she won in Daegu the other night as well. Beating Jalimo. Zhu Haiyan will share the 9th lane with the pacemaker. This is Becky Sweeney of Great Britain, Jenny Meadows' training partner. Jenny's husband, Trev Painter, developing a really strong group up in the northwest. And he must be really, really proud of how Jenny Meadows has progressed over the last 2 years in particular. It's a hard move to move up from 400 to 800. Not everybody makes it successfully. And now Meadows right up there in world terms with Jalimo, Jepkoskai and Sinclair. Women's 800 metres then. Pace they've asked for is something around 58 seconds, and if Sweeney can keep going to about 500 metres, they'd all enjoy that. Not sure that she'll be able to. Sweeney on the outside, in fact, struggling to get to the front. Remember how Jalimo used to love her front running when she set off here? There she is in the purple vest, cutting across onto the inside and the back straight, and now Becky Sweeney can come across and try and take over from Jalimo, the Olympic champion, who settles back into the pack. Jenny Meadows moving up on the outside through the first 200. Well, it was what, Tim, about 27 and a half, something like that. That's a bit swift.
It does look a little quick, yes. Rebecca Sweeney looked very, very nervous today, having been brought all the way over from the UK just to pacemake for 500 metres or so. Now she's easing off a little bit. Smart running from her to let the field gain contact and really help them through this next 200 metres. Well positioned is Jenny Meadows here with Jalimo on the inside there, Steve. A bit of a question mark over Jalimo's form, I have to say. I'll be fascinated to see how she goes through this second lap. It's not the dominance that we saw a couple of years ago.
So Sweeney leading them through in 59.94, slowed a little, or quite a lot of course, over that 200 metres. They're bunching up behind her. Jenny Meadows in a good position, wants to follow Sinclair if she goes past the pacemaker. Jepkoskai trying to hold the inside as well. Jalimo in 4th place behind them, but Meadows looks nice and comfortable, moves up under the shoulder of Sinclair, the world leader this year. They're all starting to bunch behind Jepkoskai, just trying to check, and then wants to come on the outside now. Jepkoskai looks in good form. Peteljuk making a move as well. Jenny Meadows just going to have to work her way through, then trying to go with these two. Sinclair wanting to hang on to the lead, working hard around the top bend. These three with a little bit of a gap here. Now, what has Jenny Meadows got? Can she attack on the outside? It's Sinclair in the lead. Jepkoskai trying to find somewhere. The Olympic champion is a distant 5th or 6th. Jenny Meadows trying to come on the outside. It's going to be very close on the line, but Jepkoskai pulling away as Sinclair fades. It's going to be Jepkoskai from Jenny Meadows. It's going to be outside 2 minutes. Sinclair just hung on for 3rd. 2:1.06. Good race. Pacemaking a little awry for first 200 was a little quick, and they all took a bit of a time to recover from that. There was a good battle down the home straight, came down to a bit of strength in the end, but that's a welcome return to some good form for Jepkoskai. Meadows wasn't too far away, and all it's doing is confirming that when medals get handed out in the Europeans and of course the Commonwealths, where hopefully we'll see Jepkoskai later in the year, Jenny Meadows won't be too far away either. But it's the win for Jepkoskai and the first Diamond League event of the year over 800 metres.
Well, I was a bit puzzled there, Steve, at Jenny Meadows' tactics. With 200 to go, she was perfectly positioned. She'd done everything right. She was on the shoulder of the leader going into the final bend, and then she just let Jepkoskai come past her on the outside. I think she should have accelerated there and forced the Kenyan to go very wide around that final bend, because she's finishing as strong as anybody here, Jenny, but she just gave Jepkoskai that metre off the bend. And look at the gap she loses by, what, 1.5 metres, something like that? All credit Jepkoskai. It's a good win. She ran very strongly in, and to be fair, she did look absolutely full of running there down the home straight. But I think Jenny might look at the tape of that one and think to herself, why didn't I just move onto the shoulder of the leader, Sinclair, there with 200 to run?
Yeah, there was an opportunity, I think, when Jepkoskai was actually on the inside going down the back straight, and well, if you'd seen her as a danger, I think probably Jenny Meadows was thinking that the bigger danger was perhaps Sinclair, and allowed Jepkoskai to get into a better position. And as I said, they were both running very strongly at the end there, but the gap that Jepkoskai had became the crucial one. Tornblad in the men's high jump. Well, we were talking about this competition earlier on, and all we've seen is failures, to be fair, and it is carrying on in the same vein. Only the 3 men had cleared 2:24. Likes of Barber, Tora Harris, Andre Manson from the USA come all the way here. Only cleared 2:20. So for Tornblad, carries on the, well, shall we say, the average form in this men's high jump. So It's all left up to this man, Sylvester Bednarek.
Yeah, disappointing performances so far. Dornblatt 2:24, Bednarek then at 2:27, no. And he too, finding that height beyond him that would normally be well within his compass. He's a 2:32 jumper at his best. Cleared 2:24 at the first attempt though, and for Bednarek, that put him in the driving seat. With the failures coming thick and fast at 2:24 from his competitors, and indeed at 2:27 including himself. He wins with that 2:24 first time clearance.
Well, that means he ends up, you can see you're not supposed to be that happy when you fail at 2:27, but he knew that if Jesse Williams were to fail, then he would be the winner on countback. So probably no surprise. See what happened? Jesse Williams duly missed his third attempt, so it was the Pole who came out on top. 2:24, the winning height. As I said, just the three men clear at that. So not the best competition to start off the Diamond League series, but I'm sure it'll improve during the year. Pretty open event, isn't it, the men's high jump? There's nobody sort of dominating in world terms.
No, that's exactly right, and that's great, isn't it? I mean, there's a predictability to some disciplines. If Bolt's involved, you don't mind it because it is so special. You're watching a living legend perform, but in the majority of disciplines, you want to have that question mark in your mind. I'm not sure there'll be many competitions won in 2:24 the rest of this season in the Diamond League series. I don't want to call it soft points for Bednarek. All you can do is turn up and beat the opposition on the day, but 2:24, it's I bet if it went through the annals, it's you'd have to struggle hard to find good quality commercial meetings like this that are won with such a modest height.
There's confirmation then. Bednarek wins on countback, gets the 4 points.
Brian Johnson then in this long jump. This one began about 45 minutes ago. And Johnson, well, he opened with 7:64. US champion 4 years ago. Way into the plasticine on that effort, the American in the fourth round. We are in the fourth round now. I can tell you that Fabrice Lapierre, the Australian, and he was favourite with 8:27 in round two, holds the lead at the moment. All three of his valid efforts well beyond 8 metres. His opener, the Australian, 8:24. Lapierre, he won the World in Tour title in Doha just a couple of months ago, and he seems to have picked up where he left off because his form very strong indeed. Dwight Phillips, the Olympic champion from 2004, three-time world champion, in second place at the moment with 8:18. That was also in the second round.
This is Xu Xiongfeng, who's lying in fourth place at the moment. He'll be pretty pleased with that if he ends up there. He has jumped over 8 metres, a new personal best this year. He's 23, 8 metres 11. Just missed out on a medal at last year's World Student Games. His best so far, 7:87. And that will not improve matters. A little shake of the head. They're over on the far side from where we're sitting as we just show you the result from that women's 800. It was really about Jep Koskai and Jenny Meadows. 2:1:06 the winning time. Kenya Sinclair faded somewhat. And look at Pamela Jalimo. What is that all about? The Olympic champion looked invincible 2 years ago. 4:21. Of course, those points will accumulate as the season progresses.
Well, you can see the athletes lined up over on the far side of the track at the 200-metre start for this women's 5,000 metres. 16 athletes in the lineup and a very high calibre field, I can assure you. 8 women in the field have broken 15 minutes. The pace is expected to be fast, around 70 seconds per lap from 2 pacemakers. That's 14:35 pace. And there are the big names. Meslet Melkamu of Ethiopia, the second fastest in history at 10,000 metres in this lineup. There's Viola Kipibot, former world junior champion. Chirono Antone Yelo Wangari, 6th in the world cross country this year. She's in good form. Eloise Wellings, former World Student Games champion over 5,000 from the USA. Wojecka of Poland, huge talent. Ejigu of Ethiopia, World Junior champion over 5,000 a couple of years ago. There's Florence Kiplagat, the World Cross-Country champion last year, and the Kenyan record holder at 10,000, and that you have to respect. Kibet, Sylvia Kibet, the silver medalist last year at 5,000 metres in Berlin. There's Melkamu, possibly starts as favourite here. Silver medalist in the 10,000 metres in Berlin. She raised her arms to celebrate and got out-dipped by Masai, a Kenyan. And here is Masai, the world champion at 10,000 metres. So a little bit of early season revenge possible here from Melkamu. Masai, just 20 years old still, the Kenyan. To the extreme left, with just two people to the left the left as we look at it. Esther Chemtai and Tamara Tverdostup of Kenya and Ukraine respectively. They are the pacemakers. Tverdostup expected to go to 1,500 metres. That's 3 3/4 laps at 72nd pace. And then Chemtai to take over to try and get them to 2,500 metres halfway at that tempo, 70 seconds per lap, 14:35. So that is Tverdostup, the Ukrainian, better known as an 800 metre runner and a 1,500 metre specialist. She's quite tasty. Has run almost 2 minutes exactly for 800 and 4:07 for 1,500. She's one of those athletes who's chosen to be a specialist pacemaker. Paced the 1,500 metres in Doha last weekend. Conditions, well, it's quite misty in the stadium. Humidity's high. It's not a warm evening. In fact, we pulled our jumpers on. It's, what, Steve, about 15 degrees, something like that? Pretty much ideal for distance running, you could argue.
You could, and obviously we saw the women's steeplechase, which was pretty swift, so if the pacemaking is good, and they've asked for around 14.5 minutes, as you're saying, and that's going to certainly test the likes of Masai and Kibet, Melkamu, maybe Kiplagat might get in amongst it. But they can see how much they're stretched out. But the main thing is that this early pacemaking is even paced. It doesn't jump around all over the place. And if they are asking for 70 seconds, okay, if you do a 71, you don't turn up and do a 68 on the next one. So a bit of experience required. There's Kiplagat just tucked in there. Remember when she ran down Masai, didn't she? She did the opposite of what Masai did to Melkamu in the World Championships outdoors. She did it at the cross country. It was a bit of a surprise win, that. She hasn't really produced the same sort of form on the track, Florence Kiplagat. And I like watching Masai. I think she's a beautiful looking runner. She's very elegant. She's got a good racing brain. She's really way back in the field.
She's back in about 10th place at the moment.
About 10th, I was just going to say, with her back at the front here and try and pick her out for you. You can see her elegant stride, but I think she's got a good racing brain. She hangs off the pace. She lets others do, you know, the pace when they move forward and change and come back, and she just tries to maintain, keeps in contact, and then waits for the business end of the race.
Well, they're moving well. They've just gone through 800 metres and around 2:19 at the front. So the main protagonists up there in the first 6 or 8 places in this pack, which is being strung out pretty quickly, will have gone through in around 2:20, 2:22. So it's good pacemaking from Tverdostup, the Ukrainian. In second place, there was Chemtai, the other pacemaker, and then Melkamu, who I would expect to want to push this on when the pacemakers have gone.
Well, back in the men's pole vault, the bar's now been raised to 570. This is the second attempt for Alexander Gribic. Now, well, we're starting to, many of them are starting to find this a little bit tough. And we've only got one clearance so far at this height. That is Malte Morv, the German I was talking about earlier on. He's already cleared 570 with the season's best. Might get the chance to show you that shortly, but that's a second failure there for Gribic. Again, not really getting the penetration to the bar to get his high point over. And I'm just looking down, Tim's in fact pointing it out to me, as look down the computer here. But, Steve Lewis has gone out at 550, 3 failures at that height. Jeremy Scott also out. Tim Mack, another American who'll be very disappointed to have come all of this way. And Tim Mack only cleared 5 minutes 20. Maxim Mazurek from Ukraine. Again, second attempt at 570. Well, this is sorting them out, isn't it? As we keep saying, we've obviously, it's self-evident it's early in the season, and for some athletes, as Tim was saying earlier on, if you're European, got European championships. If the Commonwealth, of course, games held in Delhi in October, some athletes, British athletes, will be competing in both. But then for many others, Americans included, no major championships this year, which can be a good thing.
It's funny though, Steve, isn't it? You think about the Chinese, for example, their major goal is those Asian Games in November. They've got 6 months yet until their real high point comes. You could forgive them perhaps for being out of sorts at the moment.
So Steve Hooker, one failure. It never seems to bother him, does it, when he's in a little bit of difficulty early in a competition, which happens to him occasionally. And that, of course, the mark of a athlete, any athlete who has real faith in his ability to produce the performance when it matters most. So second attempt at 570 for the Olympic champion. Well, again, it's really ragged. He's throwing himself off to the side there. That wasn't as good as previous clearance that we saw at 550. He was miles over the bar, but he's struggling here. He's trying to spot where it's going wrong there as he just pushes up. He's moving off to his right quite remarkably, and although that's not totally unusual for Hooker, he's just struggling here. Just watch this, he clips it with his knee, doesn't it, first of all, and then he knows. But again, a little ragged from the man who's favourite, and he's certainly got some problems now. 2 failures at 570, just one man clear, as I said, more of Germany.
Well, they've just gone through 2,000 metres in 5:51, so after a 2:54 opening kilometre, which was quick, it was a 2:57 to bring them to this point, and the pacemaker Chemtai has taken over from Tverdostup, who did a great job, I have to say, the Ukrainian, very experienced, and that skill to hit the marks when you're pacemaking does only come with time. But this is a big group moving along at this pace. Way back, about 80 metres back, for example, is Poland's Lydia Ojecka, who's very much a world-class competitor when she's in form. I have to say, I don't think she's in particularly good form here today. Oh, and that's unnecessary. Mid-race, okay, they're moving pretty fast, but there's no need for the traffic to become so intense that they actually start clipping each other there. I think that might have been Masai, was it, who was involved in something at the back there. Certainly Kiplagat is out of trouble, up in about 4th place. In 2nd place, they're behind the pacemaker Chemtai, Ismail Kamu.
Yeah, I think she did, sorry Tim, I think it was Antenna, did well to stay on her feet. Looked as though she was going to go clattering to the ground, just clipped, and there's another one just raising her hand. I think that's Ejigu saying, just be careful behind me. Yalu back in 4th place there, moving along well, and the Ethiopians dominating this one at the moment. I don't think you'd see too much teamwork going on in distance races nowadays, but there's just an element of understanding here from these Kenyans, pushing it on hard mid-race, these Ethiopians rather. 4th round in the men's long jump. Geisa, Commonwealth champion, has been over 8 metres this year, but only 8 metres 6. Finds himself in 4th place at the moment, and indeed 8 metres 6 is what he'd require to go into the top 3. Now, still led by Lapierre, who we're yet to see, with 8 metres 30. So we're well into the 5th. Geisa coming up short there. Incidentally, Saladino, the Olympic champion, had to pull out with a hamstring injury just about an hour or so before the game. We think he was having a bit of a problem beforehand anyway, but tried to warm up and then decided to think better of it. Indeed, here's Fabrice Lapierre saying he was leading the competition. He had a huge jump, another of these Australian athletes who's performing well, which was over 870, 8:74 I think it was, with but it was wind assisted. And nonetheless, he's already having a good start to the year. World indoor champion from Australia. That's another big effort there from Lapierre. What a season he might have ahead of him. Of course, many people might have expected Dwight Phillips to come out on top here tonight. No Saladino. Phillips normally very, very consistent as well, where he's got a real competition on his hands here with the Australian. Now, he's going to be getting not too far away from his personal best. He set that last year, 8:35. Of course, the Australians have had a pretty full season. Their season finished a few weeks ago. They've already picked their team for the Commonwealth Games in Delhi. Seems a little early. Look at the height he gets off the board, Lapierre. Now, it's hard to hold that sort of form if you produce good form in Australia in February, March, and then have to come back, of course, and have another peak this season. 8:30 for Lapierre. That's the lead. And as I said, just 5 centimetres down on his personal best, looking in really good form. I think they're enjoying themselves, Tim.
I think they're just saving up their excitement for Lu Zhang, who comes in the next race after this women's 5,000, which is beginning to hot up now. 3,000 metres in 8:52. It means that third kilometre was outside 3 minutes, the slowest of the race. But now it's Masai who has taken the lead and just beginning to stride out there and try and stretch this field and bring some respectability back into the tempo in this fourth kilometre. Malkamu in second place. It did all slow right down as they went through 3,000 down in front of us a minute or two ago, so they started bunching, and that was a shame because it was set up well with that opening kilometre of 2:54, and it was still a fast time in prospect with 5:51 at 2k, but then they began to lose it, and I think Masai here has decided to make sure that it stays healthy, and this little group of 4 beginning to ease away. Single file it is, and Masai, as Steve said, is normally a very, very astute tactician, likes to bide her time. Perhaps here just showing a little bit of frustration with the Ethiopians, who had the race set up for them so well, with good pacemaking from Dverdestop and to a lesser extent by Chemutai. But Masai, long and linear, very different to the majority of the Ethiopians, who tend to be relatively short, if not squat. But Malkamu dogging her heels here and determined not to let a gap develop.
Just watching the split times, Tim, that was a 68-second lap, the previous lap, the fastest of the race so far by a couple of seconds, and that is Masai trying to get rid of this little group, at least trying to break it up. It's okay if there's one athlete there, you start to think about winning from that point, but when there's 3 still sitting on your shoulder, then you start to get a little bit nervous. So Masai, not normal for us to see her leading like this, as you said, but she's doing a good job, and you can see what she's trying to do here, really trying to run the legs off the athletes behind, but they're looking fairly comfortable at the minute. Malkamu more than happy to sit there, and well, she'll be thinking she wants some revenge, won't she, for what happened at the World Championships against Masai. Of course, that was over 10,000, as I think you mentioned earlier on, Tim. She thought she'd won the race, and Masai just got her on the line.
Well, at the back of the group is Kiplagat, Florence Kiplagat, world cross-country champion last year. She's looking pretty comfortable at the moment. Masai with 600 metres to run. She hasn't shifted any of these athletes yet. Ajigu, that is, in third place. World Indoor Championship bronze medalist over 3,000 metres just a couple of months ago, the 24-year-old. And Masai just cranking it up. Every couple of 100 metres, you can see, you just sense the turning of the screw a little bit more. 500 metres to run, under 500 metres to run now. They're straight, home straight for the penultimate time. But what can Masai do here? Not renowned for devastating speed over the final 400 metres, but she does wind it up well in the last 200. She hasn't done any damage though. Those 3 right behind her and looking comfortable at the moment. In second place is Malkamu. She perhaps the pre-race favourite with so much strength, and as you mentioned, Steve, just that reason to want some revenge here in the early season and put matters to rights. But Masai's running very, very smoothly, isn't she? Nobody yet has moved up alongside her. They're just about to go into the final bend. She's moving so well that it's very, very hard to accelerate past anybody who is themselves accelerating gradually. you've got to put in a double acceleration. And as Masai now round the crown of the bend will sense these two coming up alongside her, Ejigu and Melkamu, has she got anything left in the tank? Can she move away again? Ejigu, of all people, having the audacity to move alongside the world champion at 10,000 metres and move ahead of her by half a metre and a metre ahead, and she's going to take it by a metre from Masai. It's a win for the Ethiopian Ejigu from Masai. I think Melkamu, they're just hanging on to third place. The winning time, 14:30.97. They did grab back, crawl back towards a respectable time there after that mid-race slowing. But what a surprise there. The two pre-race favourites, Masai and Melkamu, gold and silver medalists over 10,000 metres last year in Berlin, outsprinted there by the lesser light centre Yehu Ejigu, just 24 years old, was fourth in the 5,000 metres last year, outside the medals in Berlin, over this distance. Well, tonight takes first place and some very, very significant scalps.
Well, they have so much depth of talent, and Ejigu, I think herself, is rather surprised to have beaten, well, at least two very big names there, in Lynette Masai and particularly Melkamu. In fact, Ejigu was with Melkamu, I saw in the hotel earlier on today, and I bet she wasn't thinking necessarily of winning this. She's opened up this year very well, though. Bronze medal at the World Indoor Championships. Maybe gives some hint of what was to come. But it was a surprising run for me by Masai there. I'm not sure what she was thinking. I would have thought Masai would have normally assumed she could perhaps out-sprint certainly Melkamu. She wasn't reasoning with Ejigu why she felt as though she needed to push it on. Maybe she was after the strong pace as well. Kibet almost trying to take on Melkamu for third, but didn't quite get there. But Masai just has a glance across and realises that Ejigu has just got enough. It's a real battle of strength more than anything else here, rather than picking up the pace dramatically over that last 200 metres. Masai's form never changes, does it? She just doesn't have enough to change up there. Ejigu doing pretty well.
Well, and she sets a personal best there, Ejigu. No wonder she's delighted. A world lead, a meeting record and a personal best, all rolled into one. 14:30.96, the winning time for the little Ethiopian. Biggest smile of the night there, I think, with that win under her belt.
Men's javelin, and we saw this man earlier on. We were saying how much they've started this season so well with Jan Zalesny coaching Vesely, and that one coming down rather disappointingly. He started the competition so well with 82.95, and given that he's already thrown 86 this year, he thought maybe some indication of what was to come, but he hasn't been able to build on that at all. Little shake of the head. And it's his teammate Peter Friedrich who's been having a better evening of it. There he is. And that was where he'd stood so far, 85.60, and this is in the final round. Friedrich, and finds something even better, launches one out there, almost to the lead. Friedrich, as I said, so far this season has been just behind his teammate, but the two Czech throwers maybe turning back the clock a little bit to the great days of Zalesny. Who knows, as the season progresses, they continue to improve, but they came here tonight to try to take on the Olympic and world champion Thorkildsen. And Friedrich just coming up short there. It was a good throw though to finish 85.57, his best of the evening, keeping him ahead of his teammate. Well, I guess the pressure was there for him. Third round, you can see there, 86 meters and 11. It's not a commanding position for Thorkildsen to be in, and he was under some threat during the whole of the competition here tonight, but he got himself into the lead and managed to stay there. This was his final throw. Wasn't a good one though, and he stepped over the line. So it was a win, not convincing though for the Olympic and world champion from the two Czech throwers. He might be seeing a little bit more of as this season goes on. And no doubt, I think as Tim mentioned earlier on, I'll be looking forward to leg 3 in Oslo on June the 4th.
Yeah, those next 2 legs in Oslo, as you say, Stephen, then Rome 6 days later on the 10th of June before we head over to North America for the New York meeting.
Well, it is all wrapped up then. Torkelsen 86 meters and 11 centimeters, winning by about half a meter or so from Petr Friedrich and Vítězslav Vesely from the Czech Republic. Nobody else over 80 meters.
Well, the next event on the track is the 110-meter hurdles, but we stick with the long jump, which is in its latter stages now. Brian Johnson, 7 meters 80 in the second round, the best of his first 5 efforts. He's only an 8:02 man this year, but he has jumped 8:33 at his best. This former US champion. Very flat indeed, didn't it? Just really struggling for lift off the board. Compare that with the form of Lapierre, who still leads with that 4th round, 8 meters 30. And there's a huge contrast. That one well down below 8 meters. Good on the board, I have to say that. But Johnson there, no. 7:79 with his 6th and final round effort, and 8 meters way beyond him tonight. Ignatius Geiser then. 7:91 in round 2, his best. Final chance to penetrate the top 3 here for Geiser, who at his best is a formidable competitor, an 8:43 jumper. Good height there, almost too much height, and again you can see he's come down way below 8 meters. It's just not clicking. That's so often the case for these athletes in these early season meetings when they're a little bit ring rusty. Bit of an adjustment there, a couple of strides out too, so he lost a lot of momentum. And that's really does what put paid to any chance for big distance. He was safe on the board, otherwise I think it would have been no jump. But the penalty is coming down way below 8 meters. No, back to the drawing board. Having stayed on the board, 7:81 for Geiser. Well, confirmation of the win there for Ejiga, 14:30.96, a personal best and a world lead for the young Ethiopian. Masai and Melkamu, the big names behind her in 2nd and 3rd. There's the rest of the times. The first 9 athletes getting under 15 minutes, a long way under 15 minutes. Pretty good running that. And those diamond race standings, of course, so it'll be 4-2-1 to those 3 athletes, Ejiga, Masai and Melkamu. Early days yet, and of course those totals will accumulate in the Diamond League scoring tables.
Well, they're all getting a little excited, aren't they? They're waiting to see, of course, the big hero, Liu Zhang.
I think a little excited is the right word, Steve. They're looking very, very subdued. There he is, Liu Zhang, the Olympic champion of 2004. This is his hometown, of course, Shanghai. He goes in lane 5. It's a good draw for the local hero. This is first outdoor race of 2010. Ryan Brathwaite, though, of Barbados, is the reigning world champion. A bit of a surprise gold that for the 20-year-old. Last year was 20 then, 21 now. He goes in lane 4, right beside Liu Zhang. There's Brathwaite to the right. Zhang in lane 5. And he's refreshingly honest, is Liu Zhang. He's had a lot of problems with an Achilles injury, which was operated on at the end of 2008. You may remember at the Bird's Nest. Before those Beijing Games, he stepped out into the arena and couldn't start his race. Tried to go over a couple of barriers, shook his head and stepped out of the arena, unable to take part in the Games, to the disappointment of probably 1 billion plus Chinese. But what an atmosphere there isn't here tonight with this relatively small crowd, I have to say, generating a fair bit of noise now. As Zhang just walks up to that first barrier. There's the full lineup for this men's 110-metre hurdles, the penultimate race of the night. Lu Zhang, the 2008 Olympic champion, goes in lane 5. The former world record holder, of course, Darren Robles of Cuba, now holds the world record. He is the Olympic champion. Robles, incidentally, raced in Daegu in Korea on Wednesday, was hoping to race here, couldn't come to an agreement with the meeting organisers, and no lane therefore available for him. That's Wen Junji of China, the Chinese junior champion in 2008 and in 2009. He's in 1. And Yin Jing goes in lane 2 again for China, just 19 years old, a season's best of 13.68. Jing Yin. Dwight Thomas, World Championship finalist last year, finished 7th, did the Jamaican. Although better known previously as a 100-metre sprinter, he was 5th back in 2005, over 100 in the World Championships. There's Brathwaite, only 13.67 for 5th place in Daegu on Wednesday. We'll need to find much better form here tonight to get anywhere near the leaders, I suspect. And there's Lu Zhang, world champion in 2007. That world record of his came in Lausanne back in 2006, 12.88. He's still the second fastest man in history. 2 years later, Robles snatching the world record with 12.87 in Ostrava. Of course, that Ostrava meeting is this coming week on Thursday. David Oliver, well, the world #1 this year. He probably starts as the favourite here. He goes in lane 6 as the American. Winner in Daegu in a very good 13.11 last Wednesday. Shi Dongpeng of China goes in lane 7, the Chinese #2, and a solid #2 as well. He's a 13.19 performer at his very best, 13.4 this year. Alan Johnson, well, one of the great legends of this event, 39 years old now, Alan Johnson, 4 times world outdoor champion, 3 times world indoor champion, and the Olympic champion in 1996, 14 years ago, of course, in Atlanta. And completing the lineup, Mike van Koopten of the Netherlands, the Dutch #2 last year. He will struggle to go with the best guys in this one, as will, incidentally, Alan Johnson. On his day, he can still run pretty well, Johnson, but only 13.81 for 7th place in Daegu on Wednesday. He was a long way off the pace in that race won by David Oliver in 13.11. So Brathwaite, the world champion for Barbados in 1. Lu Zhang goes in lane 4, rather, Brathwaite. In 5 is Lu Zhang. And in 6, David Oliver, the in-form man. Steve, your views quickly on this one for Lu Zhang?
David Oliver will win this, I would think, and I think Lu Zhang will be very pleased to be 3rd or 4th.
I think that's probably the much-held opinion. So once again, then Dwight Thomas in 3 for Jamaica, Brathwaite the world champion in 4, Zhang in 5, Oliver the favourite in lane 6. Away first time, great start from Lu Zhang. He got the lead there away from Brathwaite. Brathwaite's down and gone, but look at Oliver. Oliver on this side going away from Lu Zhang. Coming through Shi Dongpeng. Lu Zhang's going to be 3rd, but it's Oliver winning very comfortably indeed. The winning time 13.01 into a slight headwind, minus 0.4 from Oliver. He's on fire, this American. 13.11 in Daegu on Wednesday. 1/10 of a second quicker here tonight. Several metres quicker than the rest of that field. I think the 2 Chinese running well. Shi Dongpeng taking 2nd and Lu Zhang 3rd, but they're a long way down. The times will reflect that. Brathwaite had a nightmare, and that might well have been, Steve, because the pressure applied by the very quick start, and he's always been a great starter, from Lu Zhang in the lane just to his right in lane 5. Brathwaite really struggling over the early flights and going down, but Oliver is the man of the moment, and that, well, it went to the scoring tables, perhaps the best performance of the night, 13.01.
Well, he's beaten Robles a couple of days ago, and now he's defeated Lu Zhang. He is the world #1 at the minute. I think Lu Zhang will be very pleased with that. Yes, Brathwaite stumbled through the hurdles again. That's his 2nd race he certainly did it last week in the UK, and he needs to sort himself out, the young world champion. But it's a bit of a return to form for Lu Zhang. He's still a little way off the pace, 13.40, a long way behind Oliver. But who's going to take on this man this year? He's obviously capable of going much quicker than that. He's been very consistent in his races so far. That's the fastest one we've seen. He's not the best starter. He didn't start well against Robles in Daegu the other night as well, but he overran the world record holder, but this time he was already ahead after about 2 flights. Brathwaite, you can see, going out the back door after hitting the first 2-3 flights of hurdles, and then Oliver, he's all pure strength here and leaves the 2 Chinese athletes a long way behind, dipping for the line. He knew he was on for a good time. He must have been desperately hoping he was going to go into 13 seconds there. Liu Zhang, so many problems with this Achilles issue that he has, but let's hope we can see some more of him. The rumours are he won't come to Europe, he won't race against the likes of Oliver for the rest of this season. He's going to try and get himself sorted out, and who can blame him for that? But I think David Oliver's going to look forward to a very, very successful year.
I'll tell you what, Steve, it wasn't a bad event for the Chinese at all. They didn't take just second and third through Shi Dongpeng and Liu Zhang, but they got fourth as well, with young Zi Wenjun over in lane 1, taking 4th place. His time, 13:58, a season's best, but Oliver a class apart on this occasion. How great it would have been to see Robles up against him on all cylinders, and maybe Brathwaite as well, holding his form and completing the race.
I think for Liu Zhang, I mean, there's obviously, we remember what we saw in Beijing. You can't push off that Achilles where you had the operation on. Apparently the operation went reasonably well, but obviously he's still having problems with it, and he hasn't been able to do full training. He's not in shape to run as fast as Oliver, but he's out doing a lap of honour at the minute, and that should mean that things aren't feeling too bad for him. So who knows, he might change his plans.
Well, 12:99 for Oliver. Shi Dongpeng 13:39, Liu Zhang 13:40 behind him. There's the point allocation, 4:21 for those first 3 across the line. He said he thought he could run 13:50 tonight, Liu Zhang. He's gone 1/10 of a second quicker, so he was fairly accurate in his prediction. But the most important thing for him, I suppose, is that he runs that race, gets a good time, 13:40, and that Achilles is no more sore tomorrow morning.
Oh, so the men's long jump, well, a little earlier, and Su had been in 4th place, and then he certainly improved things. And China having a good evening here. He's very, very proud of his performance, and that might move him into a point situation as far as this new Diamond League is concerned. Don't forget, only the top 3 get points, 4, 2 and 1, and this would be a little bit of a surprise given that there are some better jumpers in there. And Su Zhongfeng finding good form right in front of his home crowd. Still had a few centimetres to spare on the board, but wasn't too bad at all. Lapierre we saw with that big lead, 8:30 meters, and Xu Zhongfeng with that 8.6, backed up with 8.1 in that final round, taking 3rd spot. Well, Dwight Phillips knew that with Lapierre having jumped 8.30, he was going to have to find a pretty good effort in this final round, and he's capable of doing that, Phillips. He's done it on more than one occasion, so consistent, but not tonight, and ending up coming up pretty short in his final attempt. He'll be disappointed. He's a good character, Phillips. He's a really nice guy. He's always got a smile on his face around hotels and airports as he's travelling around. But just checking there as he came into the board, didn't quite get that right. He gave it his all, didn't he? Just didn't hit that right. Got it on the board okay, but he was just cutting his speed right at the very last couple of strides, and well, Phillips, by his standards, 7.94, not a great effort in the final round. So a win for the Australian, Fabrice Lapierre. His winning jump coming in the 4th round, and in the end Lapierre decided to pass on any final round attempt. So this was a look at his win. I said before, Tim, he gets incredible height off the board, Lapierre.
Massive effort that, you're right, Steve, and it's great to see it in slow motion because it's hard to grasp sometimes dimensions at full speed, but when you see that, I mean, he got leapt over a car lengthways there, a saloon car, no trouble at all. Not a bad series at all. 8.24, 8.27 and 8.30 the winning distance.
So season's best for Lapierre. Phillips having to settle with 2nd place, and a very pleased Su Zhongfeng taking 3rd. Saladino, we mentioned, we'll keep an eye on his situation, the Olympic champion, having to pull out at the last moment with a hamstring injury.
Well, Usain Bolt gave them what they wanted this evening, a win in the 200 metres into a slight headwind, 1976. David Oliver producing perhaps the performance of the meeting just now, 13.01 into a pretty strong headwind as well.
12.99 it was corrected down to, Tim.
Oh, was it? Excuse me.
Well, you read it out yourself. I hope you're right.
I did? I never did.
12.99. Well, that might be the highlight so far, but there is one race left to come. It's the men's 1500 metres, and you can see there a whole host of Kenyans in here. All Kenyan or Ethiopian, apart from Jeremy Roth of Australia. Some big names, including Asbel Kiprop, the Olympic champion. Although he didn't win on that day in Beijing, was given the gold medal after Rashid Ramsey failed the drugs test. Bit of a shame he never got the chance to stand on top of the rostrum, of course. As Chepsiba, just a youngster, just 19 years of age. Alex Kipchirchir, former Commonwealth champion. William Biwott, Eliud Kipchoge you saw going through there, Kitani. And then this man here, Mekinen, twice the world indoor champion. Remember the first time I saw him win 2 years ago, wouldn't it? And it was a bit of a surprise for everybody, Teresa Mekinen. Didn't win outdoors last year though. And here's a man, I'm never quite sure if he knows what his right event is, Augustine Chogi. Brilliant at 5,000 metres. 12.53 is best. It keeps coming back to the 1500. Asbel Kiprop, as I said, the Olympic champion now, ran a really poor race at the World Championships last year, tactically, which is he does do on occasion. Two pacemakers on the outside. So Kiprop, Chogi there, Mekinen, Aaron Kitani, watch for him as well, the other tall figure in the purple. Eliud Kipchoge next to him. So we're looking down to the start of that 1500 metres on the back straight. Alex Kipchirchir just in the red vest. What a day it was for him when he won the Commonwealth 800 metre title. That was a bit of a surprise back in Melbourne 2006. Of course, Kenyans will be looking for places for Delhi later in the season, the host for this year's Commonwealths. So where they go, 1500 metres. The pace that's been asked for is fairly swift. They want to go through 800 in 1:52, and that will be up to Ismail Kombic on the outside, and then he'll be looking for a bit of help from Cheboy, who's just waving Kombic through. And Kiprop has moved straight into third place behind the pacemaker, so he means business here tonight.
They blasted through that first 200 metres. Steve, look at that. They've gone through 200 there in about 26 seconds up at the front end. I really thought it looked aggressive in the first 100, most of them jostling for position, and so it was. If they settle down here now, they're still going to go through 400 metres very quickly indeed. They go through 300 in front of us in about 39 seconds dead. Way too quick at the front end, and even for the guys in the middle of the pack, they'll have gone through there in around 40.5.
Kiprop in second place, he's going with a pace. Mekinen not too far behind him. Looks like Chogi moving into third as well. So pretty swift, 53.88 through that first 400 metres for the pacemaker, so 54 for those, but now they're slowing down and a little bit of tripping there. Chogi almost getting clipped from behind. You can see Kipchoge moving on the outside in the purple as well. Very, very fast through that first 400, and of course that makes it the tactics a little bit difficult as we see the tall figure.
Well, I think one of the problems is, of course, the inexperience perhaps of that pacemaking, because 53.88, he saw that and must have thought, oh crikey, I've really misjudged this one. Put the brakes on, and then they all start running into each other over the next 200 metres. It's not great pacemaking.
Kitani moving up on the outside. Looked as though he was working hard to go with this pace, but he wants to take closer order. He moves into about 5th place, but well, certainly 4th as far as the real race is concerned. The pacemakers will drop out, but it'll leave Kiprop in the front, Mekinen just in behind him. Then we've got Chogi in 3rd place, and then the youngster Chepsiba, Nixon Chepsiba, I think that is, moving up on the far side, right into, yes indeed it is, into 2nd place behind Kiprop. Biwott moving up on the outside as well, and they're all just starting to gather here. But look at Kiprop striding out. He's got a lovely long languid action, hasn't he? And this is going to hurt, though. The pace very, very quick, Tim.
Well, it was 53.88 the first lap, and the second lap outside 60 seconds. That tells the story. You need to say no more. Hoping to reach 1,000 in 2:20. and they were a little bit outside that, but it's all gone a little bit wrong as they come to the bell.
Now, is that Mekkonen who's just stepped off the track? I think it is. Now, that's a bit of a surprise. He's just walked off there as they approach the bell. It leaves Kiprop a little bit exposed in the front. And what about the pacemaker kicking away? That's Cheboy, who's in the lead at the moment. Now, Chogi trying to give chase, and they're all after him. Kiprop looks spent as well. This is going to be an interesting race here at the end. Now, Chepsiba moving up on the outside. What an incredible 1500 metres here, and it looks as though Augustine Chogi has stolen a bit of a march on the others. Kiprop's all blocked again with 200 metres to go. Chogi trying to stretch it out from the front. He tried to take it on when the others slowed, and he's kicking again. Afzal Kiprop, the Olympic champion, is coming again, but why on earth did he let Chogi get away? He's kicked away and gone. Kiprop giving chase. He's not going to get there, I don't think, but Chogi just starting to fade. Now he finds a little bit extra. Kiprop trying to get there. It's going to be tight on the line. Chogi just wins it from Kiprop. Goodness me. Well, 332.2. That is not the way to run 332.2. Two great athletes at the end there, and I said Chogi, you never know really what's his best event. He can come and win against the likes of Kiprop and the rest of what was a pretty good field here, but what a mess that was, all over the place. And what did Kiprop do? He had the race there and he let, what, 5 athletes get past him, Tim? And then he comes round, storming round the last 100 metres. Chogi's away and gone, and he doesn't catch him. But goodness me, if Kiprop could learn to race properly, he'd be, yes, he's the Olympic champion, but sometimes you wonder whether he just has enough in terms of race nous to have a very long and successful career in terms of winning medals. You can't take anything away from Chogi. He took it by the scruff of the neck and was rewarded with a win.
Well, Kiprop left it too late, didn't he? And what a charge from him. But the lap times tell the story. 53, 60, 56. And then that last crazy 300 metres. 332, you said it yourself, Steve. Absolutely the wrong way to run 332. But what an entertaining race there with a dip at the line. Chogi winning it by 2/100ths of a second in the fastest time in the world this year. 332.20 then for Chogi to 332.22 by Kiprop.
Well, he ran a poor race at the World Championships, I said that earlier on, and that certainly wasn't one of his best.
Well, back to this Sepulveda Multimura then. Cleared 550 first time, passed 560, and they're refusing at 581. More than 3 failures at 581, but that first time clearance at 570 set him apart from the rest. Steve Hooker, not a good night at the office at all. Second time clearance at 550, the best performance from the Olympic and world champion. He passed at 560, then 3 failures at 570. They've all struggled tonight at relatively modest heights, with only Moore here of Germany with the season's best, clearing a 570 and taking the victory.
Well, there've been 1 or 2, haven't there, tonight, who've gained victories with performances which even they themselves probably wouldn't have thought would be good enough to win before they started out this evening. So 570 the winning height, the only person to go clear, and on count back it was Gripic and Mazurik who took the points. Hooker back down there with the rest of them having failed at 570.
Well, confirmation then of the points for Moore, the Diamond League points. 4-2-1 for Moore, Gripic and Mazurik. Early days.
Well, the crowd have left rather quickly, haven't they? They've all disappeared. Some of them stayed to watch that 1500 metres, but once Liu Zhang was over and done with, they headed for the exits. He is such a big name here. There were the 2 men, of course, that most of them had come here to see, Usain Bolt and Liu Zhang, but that 1500 was a great race, if nothing else. It was a bit all over the shop, but Chogi, you'll have to say, deserved the win, having for at least attacking things right and running the right sort of race. Just 200ths of a second in the end over Kiprop. And Mekkonen just stepping off at 400 with 400 metres to go. That was a surprise to see. Didn't look injured to me, just looked as though he'd got the race wrong. It was all over the place, as I said, and I don't know why he just wandered off, but he did. So Chogi gets the 4 points, Kiprop 2. And it was the other Ethiopian, Gebremedet, who took the 1 point for third. So that was it for the second leg of the Diamond League here in Shanghai. Everybody heads back to Europe now for Oslo on June the 4th, as I said. It's been a bit of a mixed bag here in Shanghai. I guess the highlight, as Tim said, was certainly David Oliver running 12.99. They got the victory from Bolt, 19.76. A couple of good women distance events, women's 5,000 and the steeplechase. Thought they were pretty good as well, Tim.
Yes, indeed. Some strange performances tonight in the field. I think Fabrice Lapierre's long jump win 8:30, by far the best, but a very good evening in Shanghai.
Well, that's about it from Tim and I. I hope that he'll be back to watch what we hope will be an excellent meet in the Scandinavian warmth of Oslo on Friday, June the 4th.